Zach is back with another attack, and you can count on that. Well, I know he's ugly and he's fat, but hit subscribe and we'll work on that. Cause now it's time for my own show. It's Zach to the future, yo.
What's up, YouTube? Zach's back with another attack, and I'm joined today with Arne Parrott. He is a Renaissance performer. My family and I've gotten to know him from the Bristol Renaissance Fair. And you guys may have seen my video about that and even would know him from watching that video. So today we're going to be asking him some questions. How are you doing today, Arne?
I'm good. I'm coming off of a little bit of sickness, so I have that like post-sickness, I feel good and now everything feels good. You feel better. It's like the world is just an amazing place. So I'm in a very good mood.
Yeah, post-sickness euphoria.
What was that? Sorry.
That post-sickness euphoria?
Yes, that is exactly what I have. Post-sickness euphoria.
Oh, yeah. So, quick question. Is there a story behind that mask hanging up over your shoulder there?
Yes, there is. I had 3 or 4 years ago here in Chicago, I directed a production of The Tempest, and it was adapted by a friend of mine, and we sort of swapped out, we replaced half of the cast with puppets because we thought it would be more interesting than having them not be puppets. And so when we did that, we wanted to give Prospero sort of his magic, like magic. We wanted him to have special things he used. And so this was his mask when he was summoning the storm. He would pull the mask on and then do his magic boogly stuff. So that's his mask. I keep it and I display it there proudly because I was proud of that production. I didn't realize it was in the shot, and I wonder if that's why my autofocus is trying to think. Maybe it thinks it's a person.
Maybe, yeah.
Sneaking up on me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a cool story. So I've recently gotten to a podcast because of you called Hey Riddle Riddle, and I think you did the theme song for that.
I did the theme and the opening theme and the credits, which is the same song just with different tracked vocals.
Awesome. How'd that get set up? Are you friends with the people who do that, or is that?
Yeah, I am. I mean, it's probably a little roundabout, but so through that, actually, great, perfect. We can start with this production of The Tempest. In that production of The Tempest, I was looking for there's clowns in that show, and they've never been funny. They've always been like completely sort of. Every time I've seen the show, I'm like, these guys suck, this show sucks, blah, 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 blah. But now I have to direct it, so I have to make it not suck. And so in my search to find people who could play the clowns, I stopped looking for Shakespearean actors and started looking for improvisers, because Chicago is full of some of the funniest people in comedy. And I sort of went, I can teach someone how to read Shakespeare. I can't really teach someone how to be funny. And I grabbed a guy from I.O. and from Second City who to play that one of the roles. His name was Ben, and he was on a team at I.O. Chicago, which is still playing, called Devil's Daughter. And on that team is a person, John Patrick Cohen, JPC, as he's known in that podcast. That was when I first met him, but sort of through that contact and through like a bunch of different people, sort of all mutual friends, I wrote music for another show JPC was involved with, and he mentioned to Adel that I could write music, and Adel asked me if I'd draft a theme. I sent it to him, he loved it, and now it's a sensation.
Wow.
It's a good show. It's a funny show. It's a brilliant show, and I'm glad to do the music.
Yeah, I have been listening to almost every episode since you started tweeting about it, and yeah, we're enjoying it. Yeah. Is there any chance of you ever being on an episode of that?
Possibly.
Is that something you'd be into?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
You like Rizzies and Putties?
I love Riddies and Puzzies. Yes, I do. I like Rizzies and Putties, too. And Rotos and Blow-Blows. I would love to be on that show. I'm not really funny. I don't think I'm funny enough to keep up with those guys. They're so insanely good. And the other thing is, like, when you're in a room with, maybe I'm funny enough, but like I just want to laugh at them. Like I don't have that ability to not laugh at something that's funny. that's so important for so many comedians. You know, you watch improvise. You know, everyone always bitches about Jimmy Fallon or whoever breaking character and laughing. It's like that would be me every time. Like I don't have everything is so funny, and when my friends are funny, I want to laugh, and so I can't just like stifle it. So if I was on that show, it would just be I would be the fourth person laughing for 60 minutes and never solving it because I was having an asthma attack because of something that one of them said. So I would love to be on it. I'm not sure it's a realistic possibility, but I mean, it could happen. Who knows?
Cool. I respect that. It's good to support the people who are your friends and the people who are funny, and it's great when your friends are those people who are funny.
Yeah, they're very funny. That's the one thing I've tried to do in my life is I try to surround myself with people who make me laugh almost 100% of the time. So that's something I'm actually proud I've achieved is all of my friends are very, very funny.
I bet it's pretty easy to make funny friends when you work at Renaissance festivals all over the country.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of Renaissance fairs. You know, it's like there's no most acts are funny. You know, you can't really do like a serious act at a Renaissance fair. There are some, and there's people who get sort of dark or get a little more serious, but like for the most part, you know, people didn't come to the Renaissance fair to see like the to face the tragedy of the human spirit. You know, they came to get away from the reality of our weird world where the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing good football and Brown. So I'm trying to work into my sports references. I'm not very good at them, but I'm trying. So
hey, for
I'll probably slip in a few more here for your YouTube viewers who are thrilled about that.
Well, I'm not wearing my Green Bay Packers hat today, so.
Well, poor Packers. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You're probably a Chicago fan, no?
I'm not. I grew up in Wisconsin, so I'm a Packer fan. Absolutely.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. I knew I liked you.
Yeah.
So,
it's probably irresponsible to show you my debit card, but I'll show it to you from long range so no one can read the numbers. But those are the Green Bay Packers on my debit card.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely respect you now. So how'd you get started in the Renaissance fairs anyway? It seems like a crazy world to get thrown into.
I was 20 years old. I went to school in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and my buddy Jimmy Freer and several other people. So Jimmy Freer is large and barely balanced now. At the time, he was a cast member. We were all in an improv group together, and he was like, "Why don't you guys come down and audition? It's fun." And he and the other people who were coming from Stevens Point got it through general auditions, because that's how it used to be. Like there was just you go to general auditions in Milwaukee, and you would be auditioning for like all these theater companies, and the Renaissance Fair was there, and they would just pick people they wanted. I don't think they do that anymore. Maybe they do, but I don't think so. And so he dragged me and like 5 other people from Stevens Point down, and it's just me. I've just lasted the longest. I mean, we all got into a room in front of the old artistic director, whose name is Arne, and we did our weird characters. You know, he was like, play a character in Elizabethan village, and Jimmy played a guy that was the guy who followed the horses shoveling poop into a backpack. And I've probably played some like biblical scholar who was trying to learn about new Bible stories or something super intellectual, and they told me to tone it down and be funnier. But yeah, so I my first 2 years I played characters. The first year I was just roaming around as Basil Frodsworth, who was a professional spy who was very, very bad at what he did. And then the second year I was Arnesium Phosphate, who's an alchemist and an inventor and like just a crazy. I had a big scorch mark for the entire front of my body was a scorch mark, except for 2 like holes where my goggles were, and this was white, and this was all just like char, and then dangling around my neck were the twisted, burned remains of my goggles. And then after that, while I was doing that, I started playing music. Like I found a guitar backstage and was like, I'd written a few songs at that point, not many. But I was playing songs, and I wasn't going to do the fair again the next year. Like, it's just, it made no money. It was a huge commute. It was a ton of work. And it was fun, but it wasn't, like, fun enough for me to justify the 3-hour drive down every weekend.
Right.
But when I picked up a guitar, I was told that I could do a soft hat contract, which is where you get to pass hat in the street, and then you get to take tips from people on You can't pass it on a stage. You don't get a stage show, but you get on busk. And I did that and found that I was making money and also having a good time writing these sort of vaguely Renaissance comedy songs. And then from the rest is just me getting better at that and trying to do that more and more.
Now, if I may ask, would you make more money if you were walking around the streets? Are you able to play more consistently than you are if you're just on a stage show at a specific time?
I'm sort of at the point where it's about equal to me. I mean, I definitely, like, if I busked like the full 9 hours, I think I would make good money. But there's also something to be said for being in a location, right? Like, that's why you guys can find me. That's why, like, fans. That's why people who want to see me. Like, the problem with busking for the full time is like, where am I? Nobody knows. You could come and not see me. And so having stage shows is valuable for the sake of, well, now I'm on the schedule, people can come find me and I can get repeat tippers. So I can maybe make more over the course of a day, like just on an average if I just bust around, but over the course of like 5 years, having a stage show is definitely better because you want to build an audience and have those people come back and sort of repeat those tips. Yeah,
definitely. So while you were busking or even now just walking around all these Ren fairs, what's your favorite food to eat? Or do you have a favorite food that's outside of Ren Fair as well? Or
yeah, I have so many favorite foods. I have 100,000 favorite foods. Okay. So at the Bristol Renaissance Fair, my favorite food is far and away the Portobello Banger. It's just a bratwurst that they stuff with cheese and mushrooms. Like okay, great. And then they cover it with caramelized onions and put mustard on it, and it makes me so happy. It's so delicious. It's about to be noise as someone comes in the house, but don't worry about it. At the Ohio Fair, which is the fair I'm doing right now, they have a really good a place that sells sort of like tacos and like shrimp and like delicious tacos, and they also have a quinoa bowl, which I like very much. So those are my favorite fair foods. I sort of like the healthier ones because there's not too many options for that. Everything is sort of dipped in batter and then stuck in stuck in oil. But outside of fair, oh my god, what is my favorite food? No one's asked me this question since I was probably 13 years old, and that's a crying shame because so I like a good sandwich. I honestly think that there's not much I like more than like a Reuben or like a patty melt or just like a really, honestly, it doesn't matter what kind of sandwich it is. Like a really well-proportioned sandwich is my favorite food.
All right, you're talking my language now with these Reubens and patty melts and stuff. You're making me hungry. Maybe that wasn't the best question to ask him.
Yeah, I am so hungry right now, and this is your fault.
I know, I'm sorry. So, do you think that you would be as popular in the real Renaissance as you are at the Renaissance fairs?
Wow. So I think if I lived in the real Renaissance, I would be dead. No, there's no way I would have made it past 10. Like I'm such a sucker. I would have been like swindled and sold probably, and then killed. Like I would have been sold into some sort of indentured servitude, and then on the boat I would have died because I held my pee for too long or something, or I don't know. Like I climbed up on the deck and went, wow, what's on there? And I tripped over the boat, was killed by sharks. I don't think, if by some magnificent feat of divine intervention I made it to be 30 years old in the Renaissance, I think that I would have had like a chance at some sort of small fame, but I think that I would not actually achieve it even a little bit. I think that I also just think that I'd be, I don't have any practical skills. Like I have nothing that I have to offer would make me live very long in a time period where you have to know how to cook and make a hat or build a house or whatever.
Yeah, I like the honesty. I'll accept that.
I mean,
that's probably true. Yeah, same here.
Modern luxury, I would be. Yeah, I mean, we all would be.
I think
about that all the time in fantasy books. You know, like how I'm reading like a fantasy book. I'm reading Brandon Sanderson or something, and like there's like this 2-line thing where it's like they say like Arnie, go build a fire, and then it says, so he built the fire, and like that wouldn't work for me. Like that's not what would happen. Like if they'd be like, Arnie, go build a fire, and I would just stand there for 5 minutes looking around, sort of confused, wondering, and then the party would go do whatever they're doing, and I'd still be looking at this place where I'm supposed to build a fire, completely oblivious as to how one might even start to do that.
Right. You got a Zippo?
Yeah, right, yeah. Somebody give me some, if you got a lighter and some gas, I can take care of this. But, nope.
But if someone can light one, I'll gladly eat this fire, so it's...
Yeah, I'll eat the hell out of this fire. Don't get me wrong. And I'll spit it, too. I'll spit that hot fire if I have to.
Okay, like rapping? You're gonna start rapping, spit some hot fire?
If it was the Renaissance, yeah, that's what I think I'd do. In the Renaissance, I think I'd be the first ever rapper.
I believe it. I mean, one of my favorite songs that you do is your Shakespeare song.
Yeah.
That kind of leads to my next question. Is Shakespeare the greatest author, like, of all time?
Boy. I don't know. You know, I mean, I think he's very good. I think he's super... Depends on how you define great, I guess. I think he's certainly one of the most influential authors of all time. I think that we wouldn't have anything close to the lexicon and to the artistic, literature would be very different if we didn't have Shakespeare. In terms of like greatness, I think that there's works being produced now that are better than Shakespeare's works, but I think they're going to be less influential. I mean, he built a sort of a floor that is so astonishing that we've sort of been lucky enough to be able to move into to other grander things. But I guess probably the most influential writer of all time, I think.
Makes sense. Do you subscribe at all to the belief that Shakespeare was actually multiple people, or do you believe that it was just one guy? Have you heard about that?
I think he's just one dude. I really don't know that much about it. I think he's one dude, but I think there's some misattributions. Like in some of his later plays, he's credited as the author on some plays where I think someone else wrote stuff. There's definitely jumps in his style. But I don't necessarily. I think that's more of him going, well, I didn't finish this part, and he had someone else who he was working with, who just isn't named, or like someone in the company who he was writing with, who was like, you know what, if you want to be a playwright, sure, here, why don't you try writing this scene, and he punched it up. But like, I don't personally think so. But there's one of the foremost Shakespearean actors of our time, Mark Rylance, believes that he was Francis Bacon. I think so. Like. I mean, that guy's pretty smart, I'm not gonna. He clearly knows something we don't, but I think he's just one dude. I ascribe that idea.
Yeah, fair enough. So, what is the craziest thing that's ever happened to you? Whether it was at a Ren fair or just in your day-to-day life. I know I've seen you get knives thrown at you and play with fire, like we were talking about. So. A man that has had many crazy things happen or have done many crazy things, what's one thing that really stands out?
Wow. Okay, the craziest thing. I mean, a lot of that Ren Fair show stuff, a lot of that Mooney and Friends show stuff was definitely some of the craziest stuff to me. I'm trying to think of... I feel like there's some things in my life that, like, I guess the crazy part of it is just like how much coincidence it took to get to that point. Does that make sense? A true story for me is that I would not be a piano player had the Hindenburg not crashed, because the piano in my parents' house through a long line of confusing sort of lineage, wound up in that house because it was originally owned by two people who died in the crash, and then it got passed to my great-grandparents who passed it down, who then my dad moved it across the country. Even though he didn't play the piano, he just sort of went, if I have a kid, maybe my kid will like to play the piano. So I think that's a pretty crazy thing, right? Like it didn't technically happen to me, but I mean, that's kind of like, I wouldn't be a piano player were it not for such a crazy global event almost 100 years ago. Like that's pretty crazy. I think that. I mean, some of the like catching a knife is crazy. Like some of the things I think. Oh, I remember one of the craziest things that happened, which in hindsight is so insane. So Adam and I, when we started doing this knife throwing show, one of the first things we did was he made a little like a board that I was supposed to hold in my hands, and then he threw knives at the board while I was holding it, which was scary, you know, like. But the thing is, he didn't. It was his first like board he made, and he had old like metaphors to use, so there were these big gaps in the actual board where like a knife could very easily just like right through and kill me. And the thing about the way knife throwing works is that where I was distanced behind the board, it would actually like hit me and kill me. And so so he brings this up, of course, in the show. And I expressed some trepidation and some fear over the idea that these slats are big enough and a knife could come through and stab me in one of my very sensitive organs. And he is sort of jokingly sympathetic. And so he goes, yeah, I guess you're right. There's these slats. So I think I'll put, and he takes a t-shirt, an old t-shirt that he found, and he brings and staples the t-shirt to the back of the board. And is like, there you go. That should protect you. And everyone laughs, you know, and I laughed, but I'm still terrified. No one knows. Everyone knows the t-shirt's not going to protect you from a knife. Adam in his brain is convinced it does, because when a knife is rotating, it'll snag on the cloth and it'll just fall. It'll hit the t-shirt and fall. It won't be able to cut through the whole thing. And Adam was partially correct. He threw a knife. It went through the board. It hit the t-shirt, and slid and carved down and went and rested directly on my chest. Point first.
Oh, wow.
Just bang. And this was our first show where he'd thrown knives at me. So I'm scared 4 years later. Like, you can't imagine what it was like that first show. I panic and, like, drop the board and start running and screaming and doing all this stuff. The audience panics because they think, because I've done this, they think I've been hit. And that I'm bleeding out now, and they're going to watch me die. It took a few minutes for us to actually like calm ourselves and calm the audience, for me to convince them I wasn't hurt. And then Adam, in his like infinite grace, was like, "Well, that's it. We're not doing that again." And then we just moved on and did something else. And then it was another few months before I let him throw knives at me again.
I'll bet.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that sucked.
Yeah.
Very scary.
So all that's real. You're still like. Has it gotten to the point where you're less scared because it's happened so many times?
I mean, yes and no. You know, I don't know. Do you like roller coasters? I don't know.
Sometimes.
If people like roller coasters, this metaphor may make sense to them. I hate roller coasters. I can't do them. I refuse. Last time I was on one, I was told I couldn't come back because I swore too much on the children's roller coaster because I was flipping scared. So there's two parts of your brain, right? You've got like a rational and an emotional part. And when you're riding a roller coaster, the rational part of your brain tells you this was built by engineers, designed by people, to keep me safe. If this killed people, this wouldn't be open. If this was truly a dangerous experience, they wouldn't have all these safety things, they wouldn't have all these measures, they wouldn't have all these regulations, and they certainly wouldn't have all this stuff that is designed to protect people. But as you're climbing up to the top of the first drop, like, you don't care about that, right? Like, even though logically speaking, you know you're not going to die, you kind of give into this fear, right? You want this feeling of helplessness as you plummet, I don't know, what feels like 2.5 miles to the face of the earth. You kind of want that feeling that, like, at any moment, this could be it. This is it. Like, the fear rises, the adrenaline, all that stuff, and you give into that fear, even though logically you know you're fine. And that's what having knives thrown at me is like. Is logically, my brain goes, he's done this 1,000 times. He's a robot. He's a practiced man. He does it now every day. We've done this show for so many years. He throws around his wife. Like, at a certain point, there's so many logical things that lead me to believe you don't have to be scared. But then one knife right past my head and slams into the board, and I'm scared. And there's nothing I can do about it. Like, I suppose if we had to practice, I could really focus and get into that mindset of like, no, this is fine, everything's okay. But for shows, it's definitely the adrenaline's already there. I just give into the fear and understand that that's just what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Like,
cool. Good answer.
yeah. Hey, thanks. Let me know if any of my answers are bad so I can go back and redo those.
No, I think they've all been good. So my next two questions are from your Twitter. I went back.
Twitter.
I went back to the first tweet you ever posted, and
Lord.
the very first one says, "Not enough people fall downstairs carrying expensive china these days."
That's actually
Does that still hold true?
Yeah, that's a good first tweet. That's funny. I'm not usually that funny. That's pretty good. It's true. I mean, yeah, I think that holds true. You know, you always see. I feel like you watch these old movies and you see these people. Like, I'm holding their china, and they're like, someone goes, Doris, and she goes, what? You know, and it's like this big deal. And I've never seen that actually happen. I saw it in 6 or 7 movies when I was a kid, and I have not seen it once. So it makes me think it used to happen a lot. And then we learned or something. I don't know. No, I agree with that. That's a good first tweet. I am proud of that, and I stick by it. I was so nervous. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to have.
Yeah, that was a good first tweet. The second tweet you ever posted was the first of my many pretentious tweets from Starbucks. And that was in 2010. So 8 years later, do you still have many pretentious tweets from Starbucks?
Don't. I go to Starbucks every day and I do not tweet from Starbucks. That's crazy. Although I correctly predicted in 2010 that I would still be coming to Starbucks. I don't usually Starbucks, I grab my thing, I usually sit, and then I certainly don't usually tweet.
So the pretentious tweets have become pretentious thoughts
in Starbucks.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. My thoughts have moved away from most of my thoughts now. Like that was 8 years ago, so I was 22 years old. Most of my thoughts then were definitely like, "Oh, I'm such an intellectual. I'm thinking about the world. I'm dealing with so much." Oh, it's just like now I'm just looking at the sandwich counter, going, "How much cheese can I eat?" Bet it's a lot. So like that's now what I think. But back in the day, boy, I
can relate to that.
Just thinker. Of course, everyone can relate to how much cheese can I eat.
So my last question for you, and it's kind of a big one, but I try and ask everyone this because I actually run a nonprofit organization for non-bullying.
Oh yeah.
So, were you ever bullied, and has that played an influence in your life today?
Yeah, I was bullied. I was bullied from middle school on. I remember it effectively not ruining, but like my middle school was I remember being pretty terrible for me. I don't think I had really very many friends. My name was Arne Parrott, in a small town, Wisconsin.
A lot of people probably don't believe that's your real name.
They certainly not. And it was the funniest thing in the world to these kids was the fact that my name rhymed with Barney, and also I was a gawky, socially awkward kid. I wore like clothes that were too small or too big, and I certainly didn't do a very good job of like being cool. So I was bullied in middle school, and I was definitely a bit in high school, but up until I think there was a switch at some point in like junior or senior year, I found myself feeling cool. And I remember what it was actually. I took a creative writing class. I'll always advocate for sort of the arts in high school because this was the first time I'd ever really like opened up and written, and I was good at it, and that was so unexpected. Like I was good at writing, and I wrote, and it was funny, and the teacher liked it, and I just felt like when I got it back and him going, "This is really funny, you should keep doing this," I went, "Wait a minute, funny? What? I guess I am kind of funny." And then from there on out, it was sort of like, I feel like my senior year, I was not bullied at all. Definitely, my senior year, I definitely wasn't. In college, no, there was no bullying there, but except for like, just like the classic like drunk bro bullying, which is like, no, I don't really count that as bullying, because they just would have picked anybody. They didn't like single me out. It was just like, nice hair, nerd. Like, okay, cool. That doesn't really count as like you emotionally destroying me.
Right.
I think, but yeah, it was informative, and it was because, I don't know. I think the thing it did the most was it made me keenly aware of how easily you can affect other people. Because, and that's something that never really left me, and I think remains with me to this day, is the idea that even in middle school or on the street or wherever, like you can say 6 or 7 words to somebody that can ruin their day. And so I thought, well, you can probably also do it the other way, right? Like you can say 6 or 7 words that'll make someone's day easier or better. And so I've always sort of subscribed to that idea that like you can help other people just by paying attention, being sensitive, and talking, because you can hurt other people by being insensitive and choosing to hurt them. So it's sort of a yin and yang thing for me. So yes, it affected me. I certainly don't think anyone should be bullied, and I wish it never happened. But at the same time, I did take good lessons from it, and that is things that I found very important. So if anyone is suffering or struggling with it, it is the kind of thing that when you do grow up and when you do learn more about life, I think it informs healthier decisions to have experienced it. I don't, obviously I wish it didn't happen, but it does get better, and it does get it's helpful, to have overcome adversity like that at a young age. And my bullying was never like, oh, I didn't get like the shit kicked out of me or anything like that, but I did get sort of pushed around, and like I never got hurt badly, but definitely physically a little bit, and definitely like emotionally attacked for being artistic beta male.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm very involved with the creative fields and agree with most of that. And to a certain degree, I think bullying's somewhat inevitable, especially with younger people. And so a lot of what my nonprofit focuses on is alleviating the pain and making lives easier for people who get bullied, rather than trying to stomp out bullying entirely like some people go for, because I'm just not sure if that's realistic.
I agree. That doesn't seem very realistic.
I think there's lessons you can take from bullying, like you said. And, yeah. So maybe in 8 years, we can talk about your tweets from today. And
gosh, boy, if I'm still alive in 8 years, just put me down. My God.
What is this, the Renaissance?
Yeah, seriously. Let me go. All right. Well, thanks so much for chatting. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your time. It was great talking to you. And thanks for putting up with some of the technical issues to be able to have this done.
Hope it turns out okay.
Yeah, thanks, man. Have a good one.
All right. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you later.
Yep. See ya. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm Zach. Don't you do crack. Hit like, subscribe, comment, all that other crap YouTubers say, and I will catch you in the future.